Today, I'm here to show you that vandalism isn't always so deplorable. In fact, there are plenty of playful pranksters out there showing that a bit of mild vandalism here and there can actually be side-splittingly hilarious. From Scrat the Squirrel Sinks to conniving clock thieves, get your spray cans and Sharpie pens at the ready as we dive into the funniest vandalism you won't believe. We all know traffic can be a drag, but monstrous? Well, that's exactly what motorists driving through North Carolina were thinking after this terrifying traffic barrel monster appeared on the roadside. So, who was the master behind this stripy scarer? Back in the summer of 2009, college student Joseph Carnevale was walking home from his university campus when he noticed a load of orange traffic barrels by a construction site. As an aspiring urban artist, Carnevale instantly had a eureka moment. He stole a load of the barrels before quickly returning to his apartment to chop them up and paint them. After finishing his artistic endeavor, Carnevale headed back out, assembling this traffic barrel monster on the sidewalk, leaning in towards the road. With one orange and white arm raised, it looks like this colorful colossus is trying to hitch a ride. Either that or this traffic titan is warning motorists to keep their speed down. Let's just hope this thing never comes to life. I mean, imagine this 10-foot barrel beast charging after your car. Not everyone saw the funny side of Carnevale's creation, though. Local police dismantled the structure and arrested Carnevale, charging him with theft and destruction of property. As punishment, the street artist was sentenced with 50 hours of community service. I guess you could say he got in a bit of a jam. Fortunately, that didn't deter Carnevale's cunning creations. You see, it's not just monsters he crafts from traffic barrels. He's also tried his hand at dinosaurs, crocodiles, and whatever the heck this thing is. Well, Carnevale's vandalism is certainly a barrel of laughs. Across the Atlantic in London, England, street artist Slinkachu was the brains behind this ingenious installation. Okay, you might be wondering what the big deal is. After all, it's just a fallen bollard. However, a closer look shows Marvel's smallest superhero, Ant-Man, fighting arch-enemy Yellowjacket in a billboard-destroying battle. Can you imagine what other havoc they might have caused in London? Weaving through cogs while brawling in Big Ben? Dueling at dangerous heights while hanging from a capsule of the London Eye? Maybe even having a subway squabble as they zoom through the London Underground? The figures, which were custom-made by Slinkachu, were part of a collaboration between the artist and Marvel to promote their 2015 movie Ant-Man. That's gotta be the world's most minuscule movie promo ever. But superhero scenes aren't Slinkachu's only forte. Whether it's skaters making the most of a Satsuma's shape, odd couples uncovering the beauty of cigarette butts, or this bony bench, Slinkachu's street art shows that sometimes the greatest things can come in small packages. Back over to the US now, where New York-based street artist Tom Bob is on a one-man mission to transform the mundane into the marvelous. While you and I might look at this like any old wall protecting bollard, Tom sees a blank canvas for his creative, comic-like characters, like this unfortunate British guard. Well, that's a lesson to look both ways before crossing. Speaking of bollards, this one's a little too hefty for this wannabe weightlifter, don't you think? Tom doesn't shy away from depicting the stars, either. Whether it's this Princess Leia fire hydrant or even this gladiator garbage bin. You see a cellar door? Tom envisions a mouse's mealtime. Speaking of animals, this guy also does an excellent job of turning dreary drains into a tortoisely awesome pair. And of course, I couldn't not mention this corn-chowing radiators. Which is your favorite of Tom's tremendous street creations? Let me know down in the comments. But Tom Bob's not the only street artist to leave his mark on a city. Oak is an anonymous street artist hailing from Saint-Étienne in central France. It's fair to say old Okie has a fair bit of fun with his creations. From flu-ridden fountains to porch pianos, Oak's inventive art will put a smile on anyone lucky enough to walk by one of their works. One canvas that Oak loves more than any is a broken bollard. I mean, look at this hilarious scene. Looks like his cousin didn't fare much better either. Man, he's gonna have a sore head in the morning. Ever play Where's Waldo? That's pretty fun, right? But what if I told you you can take part in this puzzle in real life, too? That's because Oak has dotted various ingenious Waldo street art around France. Looks like he's hidden himself a little too well there. Yeah, Waldo, I'm not diving down a drain to find you. As for this Waldo, well, things haven't gone too well for him, have they? What do you reckon he went behind bars for? Considering he's such a master of disguise, perhaps Waldo went down for identity theft. Or maybe due to the fact he's always showing up in the most unexpected locations, Waldo's spending time behind bars for unlawful trespassing. But Waldo's not the only popular character that Oak has had some fun with. You see a railing, they see Gonzo. You see a crack in the wall, they see a web for a super small Spider-Man. Even this recycling bin isn't safe from the creativity of this super talented street artist. Yet it's not just mini masterpieces Oak is capable of. Nah, they've even vandalized entire buildings. Yikes. I'm not sure that I'd park my car where those eerie eyes were looking over my motor. Yet my favorite of all of Oak's amusing artworks has to be this. This school was missing its clock by the entrance gate. The culprit? This guy. I suppose you could say he's working against the clock. Now wait a second. I've seen that face before. First suspiciously spying over cars in the parking lot and now stealing clocks. What's next for the Blue Bandit? Kidnapping the local pigeons? Or maybe building some fearsome fort out of the town's benches? Who knows? One thing is for sure, Oak's street art is sure to put a smile on anyone's face. Some creative juices must be in the water in central France because just 30 miles from Oak's hometown in Lyon, you'll find the urban artwork of Cal Dessines, who has chirped up the city's streets with some birdie brilliance. From these painted pigeons perplexing their co-species to hungry hatchlings emerging from the weeds. And what about this wide-eyed owl? Who knows what that creature has seen? But my favorite of all Cal's feathered formations has gotta be this drawing of Scrooge McDuck diving down into a pile of leaves. Cool as that looks, that's gonna be quite the frightful fall for old Scrooge once someone takes a leaf blower to that pile. Scrooge McDuck's not the only celebrated cartoon character to have their likeness portrayed on the streets, though. What came first, the raised bench or the graffitied Yoda? I guess we'll never know. Either way, improves the wall, this vandalism does. Any Simpsons fans watching? I won't beat around the bush. Marge doesn't look her best here. Moving on, there aren't many things worse than doing your business in the toilet before finding out, bum bum bum, the toilet paper's all out. If that wasn't bad enough, one vandal decided it'd be a good idea to plant this Nelson Muntz sticker inside this empty toilet paper dispenser. Talk about being the butt of the joke. Most people walking past these bunch of flowers wouldn't think much of them, other than their pretty colors and pleasant scent. But one creative out there somehow thought up this ingenious idea. Looks like Sideshow Bob is having a midlife crisis with those locks. Yet he's not the only plant-based character to grace the streets. Feast your eyes on this can full of, hedge? Looks like Popeye's diet really took a turn. Speaking of eating, this Cookie Monster garbage bin is having the time of his life, chowing down on his favorite food. What a stinking snack. One famous face that's not having such a great time is Wile E. Coyote. Man, even in the real world, this guy is getting blown to bits. More importantly, though, what on earth happened to that scooter? If you're still thinking that vandalism is always down to some terrorizing troublemakers, then let me introduce you to the work of David Zinn. This street artist, hailing from Michigan, uses chalk to create his adorable urban artworks. Aww. His most prevalent character is Sluggo, a bright green, sluggy critter that gets up to all sorts of mischief, from walking through double yellow lines to sweeping leaves under concrete carpets. Aside from Sluggo, Zinn also specializes in creating innocent woodland critters, like this troll sporting a hairstyle with healthy, natural roots. And what about this resourceful rodent that's found a waffle maker in the most unexpected place? Doesn't that just sweeten your day? There's no doubt that Zinn's urban illustrations require great creativity and skill to pull off. However, sometimes all it takes is changing one little letter to make something hilarious. Take this. Now, at first glance, it might look like some ordinary advert for Johnny Depp's latest fragrance, but closer inspection shows some bright spark out there replaced the V in Sauvage with an S. Frankly, that's hilarious. Speaking of food, am I getting hungry, or are those cement barriers looking like a giant bar of Toblerone? No, don't rub your eyes. Turns out this is the work of Swedish artist Johan Karlgren. The creative first painted the cement barriers brown, leaving one remaining one which he painted yellow. After he'd finished with the paintbrush, Karlgren covered part of the yellow barrier with tin foil to ramp up the realism. As for the T and O lettering, Karlgren created these by melting together small plastic perler beads, making this daring display pop out even more. Who knew cement barriers could look so appetizing? It's not just sweet snacks Karlgren specializes in, though. From fungi-looking ballerinas to hidden homers, he frequently utilizes those plastic beads to create eye-catching, pixelated effects, transforming the mundane into the marvelous. Any movie buffs watching will appreciate this Matrix reference. The question is, what are these trip hazards doing in the middle of the sidewalk in the first place? Now, we couldn't mention movies without bringing up this dreamy remake of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Never have I been so intimidated by a mattress before. Judging by the look of that guy, there's no doubt he'd be able to spring out his weapon quickly in a gunfight. And don't get me started on his terrifying sleeper hold. From menacing mattresses to, well, just about the most fearsome man in all of Hollywood, Chuck Norris. A veteran of the U.S. Air Force and title-holding martial artist, Norris's tough guy persona clearly rubbed off on whoever discovered this broken bench. Keeping the movie marathon going, one person out there couldn't help but see everyone's favorite Ice Age character every time they went to wash their hands in this sink. Can you spot it? The two eye-like traps, as well as the elongated nose-like spout, make this faucet eerily similar to the looks of Scrat the Squirrel. Don't believe me? Look at this. Over in Belgium, the front of some of their SNCB-class trains come in a yellow and blue colorway. That led a vandal out there to give one particular train a quick spray and... ta-da! Fair to say that train is one in a million. One quick-witted British grocery shopper came across some goat's butter while doing their weekly spree and decided to stick this message on the box. And if you're still somehow not getting it, who are you gonna call? Goat's butter. The real question is, who was the vandal behind such a heinous crime? Now, I've got my eye on you, Mr. Innocent Pineapple. In all seriousness, what kind of super-prepared prankster carries around a label maker with him? That's one organized vandal. Now, I couldn't mention goat's butter without bringing up this hilarious stop sign that's been given a ghoulish glow-up in Barcelona, Spain. Talk about fabulous vandalism. As for this Queen-inspired stop sign, whoever conjured it up must have been having a good time. Considering there are over 40,000 McDonald's restaurants around the world, it's no surprise that this fast food chain has suffered its own share of amusing defacement over the years. Originally, this advertisement board said, "Treat a friend. Heck, treat 'em all." That was until one joker out there scratched out some letters, making the sign read, "Eat a friend. Heck, eat them all." Forget Happy Meal, that's a hellish meal. As for this billboard, well, there's no need to be so salty, is there? Clearly, one customer got a little upset after learning the McDonald's toilet was out of order, deciding to stick this underneath the sign. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend trying that one for yourself. unless you want to feel the wrath of Ronald McDonald. For any of you that push the pedal to the metal, sticking to the speed limit can be hard enough as it is. However, motorists passing this sign had to work out the limit for themselves, thanks to one villainous vandal who covered the speed limit sign with this complicated math equation. I mean, can you imagine the fear of driving down the freeway while desperately trying to work out the speed limit in your head? Oh, and if you're still trying to work it out, 360 divided by 4 equals 90. So if 2x is 90, then x is 45. Maybe I should quit the YouTube gig and go into teaching math. Speaking of roads, crosswalks are critical for letting pedestrians safely cross the road. And considering both pedestrians and drivers need to spot them, these painted lines have to stand out from the tarmac. Yet some street artists have gone out of their way to make these crossings even more eye-catching. From loved-up lines to Astro Boy crushing this crossing, there are a whole host of revamped walkways out there. Over in Linz, Austria, one awesome artist created this awesome 3D optical illusion, making it seem pedestrians are virtually floating across the road. While that may ramp up the heart rate of anyone with a fear of heights, this picturesque koi pond crossing is sure to calm anyone walking across it. Just make sure you mind your step. That water looks deep. The arch nemesis of all funny vandals in the world, the dreaded graffiti removal workers. Yet one worker out there isn't gonna get many calls because their graffiti removal advertisement has been, well, graffitied. Speaking of street art that sees the funny side of things, this sport enthusiast clearly wasn't too pleased at the no ball sign. I'm a sucker for witty vandalism. One realtor out there was a step ahead of the game, however. Yep, this Coldwell Banker West estate agent decided to vandalize his own advertisement boarding before any other sneaky street artists could get their hands on it. Another estate agent, Alan Stillwell, went a step further. After finding out the face on one of his signs had been touched up with a Sharpie, you'd presume he'd be pretty irritated. But instead, he used it as an inspiration for his new look. Now that is a man I'd happily buy property from. Speaking of signs, some prankster walked past this notice board and decided to give it an upgrade. Any guesses? What about, "He got us, we said glow"? Yeah, no, probably not. Let's try, "Go shout, we saved log." Nah, that doesn't work either. Instead, they went with this brilliantly simple change. And that's why they're man's best friend. Sticking with religious signs, some vandal out there gave this horrifying hoarding a significant upgrade. Now, this is a tough decision. In life, the small things can really make a difference. Don't believe me? Well, look at what one student from Reading University in England was able to do with a tiny bit of tape. Alien laboratory? Safe to say they're uncovering some out-of-this-world discoveries in there. Picture this. You're catching a flight to Sydney, Australia. Everything's going perfectly to plan as you are descending down to the airport runway. Then all of a sudden, your heart sinks. Out the window, there's a giant "Welcome to Perth" sign plastered on a rooftop. And considering Perth is found more than 2,000 miles away on the other side of Australia, it's not a quick detour to reach your destination. Yet, contrary to the sign, the plane landed in Sydney, not Perth. So what gives? Well, it's actually a playful prank by Brad Heisman, who spent close to $3,000 painting the roof of his business building, located in the Sydney suburb of Sydenham, which is found directly on the Sydney flight path. Expensive a prank as it was, Heisman said it was worth every cent. If you think the "Welcome to Perth" sign looks familiar, then that's because it's been done before. In 1978, photographer Mark Gubin was having lunch on the roof of his apartment with his assistant when they noticed all the low-flying planes that came by. She said it'd be a nice idea to make a sign welcoming passengers to Milwaukee, where they were based. But Gubin had an even better idea. He decided to paint "Welcome to Cleveland" on the studio's roof as a way to trick plane passengers passing over into thinking they'd landed over 300 miles east of their intended destination. The sign gained so much attention that flight attendants frequently had to announce the sign was incorrect in an effort to put passengers' fears at ease. Amazingly, even today, more than 40 years after the sign was painted, Welcome to Cleveland can still be found on Gubin's former studio. I think for that, Gubin's got to go down as one of the world's most wicked vandals. Back to some street vandalism now, with this disturbing depiction of what happens when you get on the wrong side of a safety bollard. Oh geez, poor guy. Yeah, you really don't want to mess with bollards. I mean, I certainly wouldn't want to cross this angry individual along the sidewalk. Wait a minute, I'm sure I've seen him before. Perhaps reincarnation is real after all. Sticking with the street sabotage, someone found the perfect opportunity to create this comical spectacle after discovering discarded beer bottles by these two utility boxes. Looks like our guy on the right had an ale of a time last night. But that tipsy utility box isn't the only one causing havoc on the streets. This troublesome thief is making off with this power box's wires. Bjørnstjerne Bjørnson, easy for me to say, is considered one of Norway's greatest writers, even winning the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1903. Nowadays, though, he's more known for his heel flip and board slides. Why? Well, because there's a skateboard placed perfectly underneath the right foot of his statue, making it seem like Bjørnson was the Tony Hawk of his day. But he's not the only statue to have accrued an accessory over the years. Feast your eyes on this awesome addition hanging to the finger of Qin Ji, a 12th century Chinese poet, military general, and apparently a big fan of the yo-yo. Fair to say that Qin Ji's life must have been full of ups and downs. As kids, we're always told to look where we're going, so we don't end up walking headfirst down a manhole cover or into a pole. Now, convenient as that sounds, if you're always looking straight ahead, you wouldn't be able to spot this mini marvel. That's right, someone spotted this tiny rainforest poking out of a gap in the sidewalk paving. Who knows, maybe there are itsy-bitsy jaguars, orangutans, and anacondas in there too. Cool as this little landscape looks, I don't think I'd be so impressed if I crashed my bike over that habitat-filled hole. While that tiny rainforest might escape the attention of people who walk past it, the same can't be said for this act of vandalism that catches the eye of anyone walking past. According to ex-user Jenny Pentland, some sneaky soul vandalized her neighbor's water tank by painting eyes, a snout, and a curly tail, turning it into a jumbo pig. If that wasn't hilarious enough, Jenny's neighbor kept painting over the piggy features. Yet days later, the unknown vandal would return to produce another hoggish incarnation. I don't know why they even bother painting over it. Never has a water tank looked so picture perfect. One sunny day, James Puchowski was enjoying a leisurely stroll along Portobello Beach in Edinburgh, Scotland, when all of a sudden, he spotted something strange. Attached to a seawall was a pencil sharpener. Yes, a pencil sharpener with a yellow sign above it reading, "Provided for your convenience by the Portobello Public Pencil Sharpening Project." A pencil sharpener on the beach. Well, that's about as useful as a solar-powered flashlight. Funnily enough, Edinburgh beachgoers aren't the only ones to be perplexed by the Portobello Public Pencil Sharpening Project. You see, multiple pencil sharpeners have been installed throughout the city, from park signs to mailboxes. Whether the Portobello Public Pencil Sharpening Project is one big prank or part of an effort to keep Scotland's pencils sharp, we'll never know. One thing's for sure, though. That vandalism is on point. Now, think about this. What do you do when you're on public transport, cleaning your house, or you generally can't stare at a screen? Do you still want to learn amazing facts and have your mind blown? Well, I've got a solution. Be Amazed is now available in podcast form. Look up Be Amazed on all major podcast platforms. All right. I better start wrapping this up before any Karens out there start hunting me down. But before I go, which of these side-splitting acts of vandalism did you find the most hilarious? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.